Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Games from Almost a Full Color. Today's video, we're going to be talking about a game called Little Orpheus. I actually played this game through Steam on GeForce Now. It was my first time ever even hearing about this game. They advertised it on something they do called GeForce Now Thursdays, where they pretty much just promote. I don't know what it takes to get into the promotion on the game side, but they just promote like a handful of games for that week, I guess, for, people to try out or whatever. So I seen this game, looked at the artwork for it, kind of got the description, thought that I would be interested in it, and decided to give it a shot. I believe the game was only about $10 or so wasn't a huge investment to actually play, which mostly led to me, deciding to take the leap to play it. Now, this would be one of those times me taking that leap to play the game actually was a disappointment. And saying that, I do want to lead with that doesn't actually mean that the game itself is bad. It's just more that it's a game that didn't appeal to me as I started playing it. I'm not really a huge fan of games that's really hard on the story, that just leans heavily into the story, and the gameplay is mostly non-existent, and it's just really a way to get you through the story. You're almost listening to a narration while you just hold over and maybe jump here and there, maybe move a block here or there, but mostly you're just listening to a narrator tell you the story of what's going on, and the gameplay maybe 10 to 15% of the actual game. You really kind of mindlessly play the game while you focus mostly on the narration. So like I said, I don't want to say that this is a bad game, because that type of game could really appeal to people out there. So it doesn't make it a bad game just because I didn't enjoy it. From a gameplay perspective, the little bit of gameplay it has, it played well. The story, obviously, like I said, I didn't care much for the game. But I guess if you're a big story person, or you find that type of comedy and stuff pretty funny, then you would enjoy it. But for me personally, no, I didn't really like the story much. I didn't find it all that funny. And since I said there's really no gameplay involved to speak about, very little gameplay, it just really didn't keep my interest. So, like, talking about maybe the graphics and things, the game does look really well. It's a pretty game. It's not like the graphics are bad by any means. I will say the one thing about the graphics that really did kind of irk me a little bit was that on the furthest most left and the furthest most right side of the screen, they are out of focus. So as you like pass by things and they get to the left side of the screen, they kind of start to blur as they go out of focus, and everything on the furthest right side of the screen that you're coming up to kind of comes into focus. So it's just really odd, because I don't feel like the game is like overwhelmingly pushing graphics to where it couldn't just keep the whole screen in focus the entire time. So to me, it did kind of like start to do a little bit of eye strain as I'm constantly looking ahead. So I'm constantly seeing things like come into focus all the time. So it's like, oh, it's clear, and then I'm look back over to the right and it's blurry, and just kind of repetitive of that. So I really didn't like that much at all. So I wish that they would take that out of the game. But again, maybe other people wouldn't have that issue, but to me it did kind of just get annoying to where I wish it wasn't part of the game. Now, there really wasn't any like bugs or anything I came across. I did play this game probably for about 2 hours or so. I didn't encounter any bugs or anything when it came to gameplay. The only issue that I did have really wasn't about gameplay, it was about settings. So every time I jumped into the game, I normally would play this game at 1440p, 120 FPS, and it wouldn't go to 120 FPS, even though I had VSync off. Like, they start with VSync at 60 FPS, to kind of lock you to 60, where I wanted to take that off because I knew this game, running on GeForce Now, the 3080 tier, I would definitely get higher than 60 for a game of this scope. So I took the 60 FPS VSync off, and I just expected it to kind of run as it would run, and I never could get past 60. So I had to deal with this for a while, and then even when I tried to run it at 4K 60 FPS, it would only allow me to select 4K 59 FPS in the game settings for whatever reason, which just completely like bugged the game to where it wouldn't even let me play in 4K. It would just keep defaulting to like 720p or 480p or something like that. So I don't know what was going on with that. Maybe because, you know, this is I can't remember where the developer is based out of, but it's somewhere overseas. So maybe it's like one of those like PAL NTSC type issues why they weren't giving 60 FPS in the settings for 4K. Not sure. Maybe they fixed that by now. Hopefully they did. But I did keep running into that issue. As for the 120 FPS at 1440p, I ended up fixing it by turning on VSync at 60 FPS. So for some reason, whatever reason, actually turning on the feature in the game allowed the game to run higher than 60 FPS. So maybe that's supposed to happen. PC gamers out there, you can enlighten me on that. I'm not a big PC gamer, but I'm pretty sure that that's not how that's supposed to work. But for whatever reason, I guess turning it on is actually turning it off, and turning it off is actually turning it on for the game. Like I said, they could have patched this by now. Hopefully they have. But that was the only, like, quote unquote bug I ran into dealing with the game, as in just the game settings and not actual gameplay. Now for the little bit of gameplay, everything played smooth. Like, all the transitions were smooth. The actual movement of the character was smooth. The little bit of climbing and small amount of puzzling you have to do, or puzzle solving, not puzzling. I don't even know what puzzling is. But the puzzle solving, I mean, everything is fine. Like I said, it's not a huge gameplay based game, so it's kind of hard to mess that up when you're leaning 95% on just narrating a story to the player. So, I mean, all that's fine. Like I said, if this is a game that, or if this is this type of genre of game you like, to where it's just heavy on the story, you'll probably appreciate this. They do try to lean into comedy and things like that. Granted, it wasn't for me. I didn't find it that funny. So, hey, I ended up stopped playing the game. But again, for only $10, if you've played other games like this in the past and enjoyed it, maybe you'll enjoy this one too. Now, one thing I did enjoy about the game was how the game was kind of presented, to where every stage is like an episode. So it's almost like you're watching a TV show that you are very, very casually playing. They give you a little bit of replayability, where they kind of put these orbs into the stages after you beat them. Like, after you beat this entire episode, you can go back and replay the episode and get these. They're hidden orbs apparently, but the game's very linear, so there's really nowhere to hide them. They're right out in the open. It's almost impossible to miss them, which makes it very boring to go back and pick them up. But if you do get these things, it unlocks like art screenshots of the game being made and stuff like that, as well as it unlocks outfits for the main character to wear. So if you're somebody who kind of likes that stuff, like I said, it's very boring just because the game's so linear that they're really not hidden. So it's almost like you just played through it twice just to unlock this stuff. I found it almost nearly impossible to miss an orb. Like, you couldn't miss one if you tried, because they don't put them on like vines or anything like that. It has to be accessible to you on the ground. So it makes it very easy to get, which makes it very boring to do. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there. This wasn't a huge game, so I didn't want to take a whole bunch of time on this one. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.